All right. We have a bit of a delay before it starts, folks. Give us about 10 seconds, 15 seconds to be sure the stream's working, and we'll get the show on the road. All right, I hear it. All right. How's it going, everyone? And welcome to another episode of No Excuses on BTWProductions.com and YouTube.com with your favorite show host, Art Still.
And Wollasel and Nofanurian, and we have Nofanurian because Fern had got an emergency work call out that he could not do. So unfortunately he's left us here, so the amount of sort of salacious content on the show has just increased by about 75%, and there's nothing we can do about it. But we will
This
try.
means boobies.
Yeah, because that's what happened last time, and yeah, it's not very dignified, but unfortunately the news has sort of bent in that direction again this week, which is not our fault.
Neither of us are really booby people either. Like, it just kind of happened.
Yeah. But, I mean, nobody listening will be able to tell because we gave the distinct impression that we were. Anyway.
I think I gave the distinct impression I was uncomfortable.
It was news. We had to talk about it. Anyway.
And it's back with follow-up. Foreshadowing with a sledgehammer.
Yeah, this is the proud Octal and Hordak tradition of foreshadowing. We tell you exactly what we're going to talk about. But, first of all, if you would like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server, which is most easily accessed by going to vtwproductions.com and clicking on the show logo on any of our recent show posts, which should take you directly to our Discord server, where you can post terrible memes and argue about terrible TV shows and so forth in our chat.
Yeah. We almost had people go off on Trigger Rant.
I think it's just that Ebian really likes those CalArts shows, and I don't know why, because nobody else does. But yeah,
We have made our opinions on them quite clear in the past.
yeah,
It ain't very high.
No, I don't see much value in them personally. But
I watched 3 hate videos on them while I was grinding Assassin Idols today in Fate Go. Just because.
I don't go out of my way to watch hate videos on them or anything, but it's hard not to notice just how many of them there are, and the material of that sort that I have watched has always made me inclined to stay far away. I'll just say that.
Oh dear. Yeah, we'll start with your week.
My week. Oh, my week. What did I do in my week? What did I do in my week? I suppose I did some FGO as usual, because the Halloween event has begun. And this is sort of like Ari's actually probably been doing more FGO than me, because he's been trying to catch up. And
I'm pretty dang close. I'm almost caught up.
Yeah, to the point where it's probably not healthy. Like, I don't play FGO that much.
When I play a game, I play a dang video game.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, Fern and I don't, when we discuss your playing habits, we don't regard it as being playing in the conventional sense. Like, REing a game is different to playing it.
It's more like the game consumes you, and you consume the game at the same time until there's nothing left and you find the next thing to assimilate.
Yeah, it's dubious.
It is wonderful, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
At any rate, other people, like pretty much everybody else in the world, consumes games normally, which means that they don't use more golden apples in 1 week than I have during my entire time playing FGO. So,
while working, I might add, so I had to cram it into literally every second of free time, barring one afternoon when I went to go over to somebody else's house.
When some of us have to, work, we don't get to have lots of little gaps. If I stop paying attention to my work, something goes very, very terribly wrong, invariably. So
this has been. We'll get to that in a minute, but yeah.
Anyway, so I've been chipping away at the oh my goodness, I'm dying horribly. I've been chipping away at the event and the unfortunately, it's suffering from the great idea that somebody once upon a time had called time gating, in order to stop people just whizzing through the event and beating everything in no time. Um,
I blame Blizzard. They're the first person I associate it with it because I think of ICC.
right? Yeah, I suppose so.
They're probably.
I'm sure they're
I'm
not
not.
the first, but
They're not the culprit, but I'm going to blame them anyway.
it seems as good an idea as any. Um, but yeah, it's a bit frustrating because that means we get the story by a trickle.
Just a bit.
And what's more, you can't even grind because you only have access to super inefficient nodes to grind.
Like, we're just now unlocking the ones where the guys are like, you can probably get away with grinding these and not feel too bad about your AP loss. But they're unlocking like one a day.
Well, no, they unlocked all of the second to top rank ones.
Yeah, those.
It's just that.
Oh, is it? They do those across the board once you finish today's
Yeah.
patch of stories? I've only finished the graveyard.
Yeah, the thing is that you unlock them one story event at a time.
Yeah. I was out of AP. I couldn't even pay the 5 AP to go to the next area because I've been trying to get monuments.
Yeah. So yeah, we do have access to all of those, but they're still bad. Like it's still inefficient and makes you, it's bad and you should feel bad, sort of thing. Like, I don't know. It seems like a weird fit for a game that is already so throttled as a mobile game. Like, it's sort of extraordinarily frustrating. But at any rate, I've always been a big fan of Liz, and the Halloween events, the first 3 Halloween events, are all super Liz centric. So I am completely okay with that. She is more adorable than normal this time, although dressed in a very provocative fashion that she doesn't realise is provocative at all. But this is commented on at length by virtually everybody else in the cast. But yeah, there are a lot of gags and call-outs in this particular event, I must say.
This has been one of the more meta events I've seen that they put out. Like, they've all been funny or silly to some degree, but this one, the word I've been looking for is just, it's a very meta event. It acknowledges other past events, which I didn't participate in most of, like, ad nauseum, especially with Banana Oni and Rashomon.
Yeah, I didn't get to participate in that one either, and it's meant that every time Ibaraki shows up, I don't understand what she's talking about, because all of the insight you get into the Oni characters, character comes from Rashomon. You don't see them very much in Onigashima, although you see them a little bit.
So, yeah, I don't have any attachment to Ibaraki. I'm not a Liz fan. I was cheering Cleo on when she crashed her thick, hard, long pyramid straight into that castle ceiling.
Why did you have to say it like that?
She's the one that mentioned Sir Lance's a lot of married women is a thing.
Yeah, Cleo has a mouth on her, all right.
I love her.
But yeah, it's the story as usual is pretty farcical and is mainly an excuse to put, otherwise dignified servants in a sort of character compromised position where they are forced to act in ridiculous ways. So
I didn't think Tristan could be more of a fruitcake, but
the thing is, he's the whole thing is it has more weight if you've played a good amount of Camelot, and I know you haven't yet. You've played some of it, but it's the contrast, really. Like, the Knights of the Round, like, Camelot is a silly place, is definitely in effect the way the Knights of the Round are in their canonical personalities, but because everything has gone completely pear-shaped in the singularity of Camelot, it's you only see them at their absolute worst. And to see them be back to their goofy selves in an even more ridiculous situation that forces them to act even more goofy than they would otherwise is a very stark contrast, we'll say, to what you typically expect from them.
Yeah, I was mostly just referencing the point where Tristan falls asleep in the middle of one of Cleo's rants. She tells him to go jump out a window, and he's just fine with it. So, like, okay, he jumps out a window, And I think Lancelot's with him, and he goes like, "Wait, what? No, don't do that. Why'd you tell him to do that?" He just like looks out the window and goes, "Oh, he's flying with the sound waves from his heart."
Yeah,
What?
there's some weird lore thing about Tristan being able to fly, and I don't understand where it comes from or what, but it rears its head now and again. I'm not quite sure how.
He is one of the least popular knights as far as story circulation goes. I don't know his story very well.
I think that he's one of the ones that you have to be into reading the Arthurian
You have to really
stories.
be, yeah.
He's not
you
one
have
of the
to
ones
really
that's in
get
the pop
into it.
culture, but
Yeah. He's not Galahad, he's not Lancelot.
he's still a well-known member of the Round Table. I mean, remember there are 12 of them.
Yeah, like, nobody remembers Agravain unless they care about Arthurian legend. Nobody knows about Tristan unless they care about Arthurian legend, but they might know his name.
Oh, I think a lot of people do know Agravain's name because of him being another one of Morgan's kids.
Maybe.
The one she actually, semi-liked.
We're speculating about how niche a niche part of historical fiction is, so...
I don't know if, like... I think that it's in some sense, it's bad that the Arthurian mythos should be so obscure, considering it's part of Western cultural heritage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that probably, like, as far as pop culture goes, people in our generation probably learned whatever they do know about King Arthur from, like, Gargoyles or something. Did you watch Gargoyles?
I love the Gargoyles. Xanatos was an awesome villain. There was I think more when they think of King Arthur. I imagine they think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Well, that's actually before our generation's time, though.
Is it?
It is. But it being a meme is not. Like it sort of got a second wind.
Yeah, because
Like,
I remember
all of Monty Python was the generation immediately before us.
Because I remember Monty Python getting a huge resurgence, and me and all my friends watching it all the time in the early 2000s.
Yeah, but the Pythons hadn't done anything for like forever at that point.
Yeah, but everybody that was old enough to process what their thoughts were at the time and had access to the internet in the 2000s watched Monty Python.
It's like I said, that was a resurgence, and you don't exactly learn a great deal about King Arthur from that. You learn, unless what you want to learn is that he's drunk the entire time.
To be fair, the very first joke we made was Camelot's a silly place.
Well, yeah.
So we pulled it.
I said that because that's what I've been saying to Fern every time something ridiculous happens. Because Camelot is the darkest and moodiest of the singularities, it also has the most violent mood whiplash.
I see.
But yeah, it's another FGO event, which means everything is silly forever, and they really work that Ghouls and Ghosts angle.
I didn't expect him to go that far with it. I thought aesthetic, okay, we're gonna be stuck in the castle and the pyramid for a few days. No, that's not what they did. Sumanai dragon shows up in the sky and kicks you back to the start. It's all Siggy's fault.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to explain that to our listeners, probably.
It was your week, so I was letting you do it.
Well,
but
I mean,
okay.
the thing is, I haven't played Ghouls and Ghosts.
Okay, so the Ghouls and Ghosts players, the none of you other than me that have beat that game, and I never want to do that again. It was a nightmare. I hate that game. You go through the game normally. It's a very difficult, very unforgiving, memorization-based action platformer where you attack enemies and you jump on platforms and you make it to the end of the level. That's great. When you get to the end of the level, in the very last level, you're like, I did it! And the game's like, no, you didn't. There's another boss. Go back through the whole game again. Go get a special item, carry it to the end of the game, and then you get to beat the final boss if you can hold on to that item and beat the penultimate boss with it. And it does it very unceremoniously. It just pops up a block of text that says, something, 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 go back to the start and do it again.
Yeah. So in this case, Liz and her party of brave companions make it all the way to the castle gates where Vlad the Impaler is guarding them. And having gotten there, you fight Vlad, you defeat him, and then he boots you back to the start. And you just see Siggy in the sky apologizing to you for sending you back to the beginning. And then it's just like, okay, so leaving aside the fact that there's a giant Siegfried in the sky.
Like the next day, the quests open up to start you up again. And I was already a little ticked they pulled that. I would have been fine if they left us in the pyramid or the castle for a while. But no, that is not what they did. They boot you all the way back to the start. And just Siegfried's just up there. And they at the start of the next day, when the quest open up, you're like, okay, what the heck just happened? They're like, is anybody going to talk about the giant Siegfried in the sky that just booted us back to the start? No, okay. Like, what? Pickle.
Yes. But, yeah, there's been a lot of mythology gags, both from the things that they're referencing, and I saw an interview with Nasu, saying that when they were designing the event, he actually wanted 8-bit Siegfried in the sky as opposed to just using his regular art, which I thought was kind of amusing. But
yeah.
Yeah, so the intent all along from the start was to be incredibly ridiculous. Like, that was their objective. Pure silliness. Yeah. But
in actuality, it doesn't make a difference. They kicked you back to the beginning. We knew how many events were how many stages were in this thing.
Yeah.
For the main story, but it just feels bad, man.
Anyway, so that's where we're going now. I've gotten most of the Ascension items, except for one, for Brave Liz, and I'm going to try and finish that one off as quickly as possible, because that way I'll have another single target saber for those times where you absolutely must put an end to Tristan, who is an archer, but you take sabers to fight him, because that's just what Camelot is like.
Yeah. I think I'll be okay against Tristan.
Because you've all the sabers in the world.
Yeah, the game just loves giving me sabers. Trying to pull through a random ticket of the Jalter banner, have Altaria. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm having a good time with that. It feels kind of weird because my expectations for events were set by Karo no Kyokai, and the issue with that is that at the time I had absolute garbage to work with. Like, Karo no Kyokai was nightmarishly hard for me because I was like character level 30 and had, well, really nothing. I didn't have any decent servants to.
You'd been playing for a couple weeks, if that.
Yeah, and it was rough, and I managed to make it all the way to the end. I got Noble Phantasm level 5 Shiki. I did what I had to do. I got through there, but it was a marathon. And every time I have a normal event now, it just seems like, oh wow, I can actually beat these fights, and I don't have to spend half an hour planning beforehand. This is incredible, because now I've got a decent stable of servants. And for some reason, even though the reason that I stopped progressing Camelot a while back was because I had no casters, now I have all the casters, so yeah, I guess I'll take what I can get. Yeah, anyway, I spent quite a bit of time, because I had a stomach virus this week, because, it never rains.
As you explained to me in graphic detail.
Well, that's the only way you can truly communicate the essence of a stomach virus, and you know this full well. But
I know, but yeah, I had to get you back with extremely graphic details of solutions.
But yeah, it was pretty horrible. Yep, definitely. But so I had some time where, like, I just didn't really want to move. I wanted to stay put, and for preference not do anything involving the movement of anything other than my fingertips. So I put some time into Berseria, Tales of Berseria. So my opinion on this is sort of sort of mixed because it is like by far and away the best of the ones that I've played, which is very few of them since I've only played Graces and Xillia 1. Um, but yeah, so I don't really have a good perspective on what it's like relative to the rest of the series. Um, I think that the reason why it really stands out is that if you look at the lead characters, the two lead characters in Xillia and the lead character in Graces, they really are bad protagonists. That's the main problem. They can't drive the story because neither of them really care about anything. Not in neither game do they ever really care about anything. Like Asbel, he spends the first part of the game running away, and the second part of the game basically purposeless. Like, he doesn't know what he's for or what he should be doing, and he just sort of wanders around as people tell him to. So he doesn't really care about anything and has, in a strange way, very little involvement with the plot. And so the story just doesn't have any oomph to it. And in Xillia, it's pretty much the same thing. Like, if you're playing from Jude's point of view, he doesn't have any objectives either. At all.
He's just got puppy love for this lady he saw.
Yeah, he sees a pretty lady and he falls head over heels for her and follows her around. Like, there's no investment on his part in anything that they're doing other than, oh, well, Mila's doing it, so I'll do it too. And yeah, Mila's not really much better because Mila has no emotional investment in anything she's doing. She's robotically carrying out the mission that's been assigned to her. She doesn't...
There's a cool... there's a cool plot twist with her on paper, but that's about all she's got, and they don't execute it very well at all.
But by the time it comes along, you really don't care all that much.
Yeah, you're just so burnt. It's even worse if you're playing as Mila, because you skip the entire little bit of growth Jude has with Alvin in the interlude when Mila's out of the story. It don't let you see that.
Yeah, Mila's really not very good. So yeah, that's the big difference is that while basically the side characters, the ones who are not Velvet, are the ones that are tag-alongs in this case. Making the protagonist a tag-along seems like a really, really bad idea for an RPG, but it seems that the recent Tales games tend to do that. I don't know how it was executed in Zestiria, since Soray's supposed to be, the shepherd. So he's supposed to be at the centre of things. But based on the anime, he doesn't have much of a character, period. Like, he just sort of wanders about doing shepherd-like things.
Yeah, he is generic protagonist 101, and I want to do to him what Velvet wants to do to Arthur!
Yeah, so Velvet rapidly transitioned from a sort of perky, spunky 16-year-old into, Berserker-lot.
Little ball of rage.
Literally Berserker-lot.
Yeah. Arthur! It's better when she starts calling him by his taken name, Artorias, because then you can make Artorias of the Abyss Dark Souls DLC jokes.
Yeah, if you want. I didn't play Dark Souls, so I don't make those jokes.
Oh, I went on their Reddit and threw a meme with her screaming at Artorias all over the place.
I see. At any rate,
I don't like the Reddit community. The Dark Souls Reddit community had it coming.
At any rate, basically, Velvet has an arc that she can go through as a character, which is something that the other ones lack, in a sense, because she already starts off in a particular place. She's not just a blank sheet of paper to write on. So the arc is actually going from one defined place to another instead of an undefined place to an actual place, which is where they seem to be going in the recent games. And I suppose Soray's sort of like that too, since he's basically nobody important and has no real sizable aspirations at the start of the story, from what I can tell from the anime.
And he doesn't, and it's even worse in the game, from the little bit I remember of the bits I saw the anime. It's way worse in the game. The anime actually gives him some kind of something resembling a motivation. Sometimes, even if they're short-term motivations.
Yeah, because
But
like, at least he likes archaeology and wants to explore. Like,
well, like
he's
that is
got that
it
going for him.
that's it for him in the game. Is he likes archaeology and he likes to explore things with McLeo.
Yeah, so he's another blank sheet of paper. Velvet is not a blank sheet of paper. Velvet is a piece of paper with a lot of angry black and red scribbling on it. So
Yeah. Think of the edgiest teenage edgelord chuny you've seen in your life, and then give them a legitimate reason to hate somebody.
I think she's actually very level-headed, and that's what I was afraid of, is that she would just be edgy all the time. But she's
Yeah,
actually
no.
a very level-headed person. She has all of her hate is directed squarely at one particular target, and isn't just like, she's not mad at the world, which is the easy way out when you're writing this character. Is just make them mad at everybody, which is what they usually do.
They do a real good job with her later, where they still do have her lash out occasionally, but she feels bad for it
I mean,
because she knows the people don't deserve it.
well, that's the thing. When you see her say something nasty or do something nasty to somebody in her party, for instance, she's not, you know, self-righteous. She's immediately contrite, and she goes off and sulks for a while, and that's usually the way it goes, and which is a far more credible way of doing things and making her seem protagonist-like. To lash out randomly at the world might be what a normal human being might do, rather than a protagonist. But she is a protagonist. It's her job to be the hero of the story, even if she's sort of an anti-hero.
Yeah, and the side characters do develop their own motivations for wanting to go on this adventure as things go on. They don't stay just having to have happening to have the same goal in mind or place they're going to in mind at that particular moment. The only one that doesn't is Rokuro, and your resident token good teammate, who you'll get later. The obvious paladin that shows up occasionally.
The crybaby exorcist.
Yeah. Those are the only two that I think have pretty weak character arcs. They pay off, and Rokuro's pays off pretty good, despite it not having a whole lot of depth to it. But yeah, Eleanor does not really, so don't have high hopes for her.
Yeah, at any rate, well, there's a few little plot holes I found with Rokuro, because you can find books that talk about the guy he's hunting, and nobody comments on the fact.
Yeah, you do get to punch him eventually, and he's actually has 2 or 3 people he wants to punch in the face. And you get to punch all of them, including the big important one. And when he punches them, it's a pretty satisfying moment.
Right. Well, I haven't actually made very much progress through the story so far. The combat system is a bit. I've got mixed feelings about it. It's kind of weird, and I can't make it work with the Malaks. Like, I can't understand how you're supposed to integrate cast times into combo chains.
So, your party, if you've met Aizen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Aizen is probably the best one to learn them with, because he still has some melee and quick combos you can fall back on. But generally what you do is you set up those as option selects if you need to cast a spell to break a weakness, or to hit something that's going to be at range or do an AoE. And you use his melee combos like you would for Velvet. But his melee combos have special properties where they do more knockdown and have a better chance to stun. And he can capitalize on stuns easier with his drive and his break. And when he upgrades it, he can eventually do like his level 3 Mystic Art off his level 2 break. So there's stuff you can do with him in that, and he plays that way. But his spellcasting is more just a tool to make sure he can still cover the AoE box as a character if you choose to play primarily as him. I don't know how to play Fee other than to spam the button that does all the damage, and I forget which one it is. It's like this black darkness attack that pulls everything to it, and then you've launched some other one of the elemental spells at it, and it just does a crap load of damage. I only used Fee to grind up his titles for the Chivo. Magilu is...
Magilu.
Don't play as Magilu if there is no casters, period. Magilu can cast spells as well, and so can Eleanor, but theirs are more... they're weirder. Magilu's a counter mage, like a mage counter mage. She only can build her resources by interrupting the spellcasts of other people. So if there's a bunch of dudes with swords coming at you, there's no reason for you to play Magilu. The AI can play her okay and get you the heals you need. But unless you want to be playing the buff bot and the heal bot, don't play as Magilu when there's no casters.
Well, she's pretty good at cleaning up trash. Like her area control is incredibly powerful. Because I did poke at her. The main reason that I couldn't play her any length really was because I don't understand how you're supposed to cast. Like the game, I don't understand the aggro rules. Period. Because every single fight of any magnitude devolves into me yakety saxing around the arena while Aizen desperately tries to cast speed buffs on me to keep me alive. Because every monster is ignoring everybody else and just chasing me around and around and around. Like, that's just what it happens. I don't know how you're supposed to not get that result.
That will almost always happen. They have ridiculously increased aggro on whoever the player character is, and they will occasionally just dump aggro for fun.
Right.
Now, they don't always do that. If there's nobody in a certain range of them, I think they don't care about what they do. Other than the player character, and then they'll stick to them like glue. So you need to know how to play the get off me game, and that's really hard with casters at first. Casters are much, much harder to play in all Tales games, and Berseria is no exception.
Even when I was playing as Velvet, I had this one particular fight where I accidentally aggroed like 18 snakes, like regular snakes, and they move about 105% your normal speed. And so Aizen had to keep buffing me. But I basically ran around and around and around and around in circles and waited for Laffy to kill them all. Because that was all I could do. Nobody could catch them. If I stopped, I would die instantly. So the entire fight devolved into me walking around and around in circles.
Yeah. So do you remember the time I told you I got killed by like 18 dodos at once? Because the fight engaged on a cliff face where I had literally nowhere to move? I was pinned against a tree. None of the characters I could control could move, and they each had like 5 dodos on them. And these dodos have stupid high stun chance. Nobody got a chance to act, and I just randomly game over and lost a ton of progress.
I think that what's actually happening in that scenario is not that dodos have a high stun chance, because they don't. They don't have a remarkable stun chance. I think that your resistance to ailments goes way down if the more things are involved in the fight.
It might be. I haven't looked at the game mechanics to tell you exactly why I got chain stunned in a corner, but
the more enemies there are, the more readily I am able to chain stun things, and the more often I get stunned.
It's something to do with there's some algorithm with amount of hits taken versus amount of damage done that influences your hit stun, but it's really, really complicated and not worth really paying attention to. Because you're in reality, you're going to be trying not to take damage anyway, and you're going to be trying to do as much damage as you can.
Yeah, like I'm trying to decide if the game really wants me to have an actively blocking play style or not, because it really seems to punish you no matter what you do.
I found dodging always better than blocking, except in emergency cases where there was no other option. Generally, I didn't block very much in that game unless a big attack was coming that I had to block, or I couldn't sidestep or just turn my butt around and run away from the boss. Because there are boss fights where you just gotta pick your cute little booty up and move your bandaged boobies up and move them somewhere away from the big line of fire. You can't keep beating on the boss and block the line of fire sometimes. One of Oscar's fights is notoriously difficult like that on the higher difficulties. He'll just set up wind traps everywhere and you cannot go touch them, period.
Yeah. The like, so there's a lot of things I like about the story, but mechanically it seems spectacularly janky compared to like, I think Grace's was the last word in mechanics as far as
I don't think many people will argue that point. Like, I don't think many people will argue. I think that Grace's was really dang good. Grace's was a ton of fun to play. It's the only reason people played that game.
It's got a really crummy story, but
yeah. But Berseria has sold itself on the merits of having a better system, a significantly better system than Zestiria did, and a more competent one than Tales of Xillia 2 and 1 did. You can break down and find nuance in the system at least, and you don't have to pair people. So that's always nice.
Yeah, like I think it's relatively accessible off the bat. Like you can just grab a controller and play it, which you really really can't in Graces because things will go very badly for you. But
Yeah.
the I think that the nuance to it is basically impenetrable. So like the skill floor needed to participate is really low, but the soft ceiling is also really low, and the hard ceiling is spectacularly high. So yeah, I don't
Well,
know.
that pretty feels that felt pretty okay to me while I was playing. At least as somebody that felt like going for in game and saved all the nuance for later.
Yeah, I'm often frustrated just not by not really knowing what's going on when I play play the thing. Like
Yeah.
there are lots of things you can't see. Like if you don't use their default combos, you're gonna have a bad time. Like if you try and get too creative, you just find that you miss your target constantly because so many creatures have minuscule hitboxes and so many attacks just cause you to move wildly around and to move the enemy wildly around. Like you simply
Yeah.
can't combo things into other things, and the only way to find out is to try them out and remember which things just don't work.
Yeah. There are some moves that cannot chain into each other. And there
What I
is
found
no
with
good.
Velvet is that most of them fall into that category. Most moves cannot chain into other moves except in the prescribed ways that are the default set of combos that you get that it automatically builds in the first three rows. Like
Yeah.
those ones all
Uh,
work, and if you deviate too far from them, your combos will just completely break down. The thankful exception is that boss monsters are so large that you can combo most things if you need to.
yeah. Then it becomes a question of finding whatever move breaks the weakness. And this is the thing that happens later is the mobs just become so numerous or so big in the post game that all those combos you theoretically thought would work but didn't work in practice suddenly work in practice because either the mini boss is big enough to be hit by it or there's so many dang things something's going to be hit by whatever you're doing. Generally I had a set for clearing itty bitty dudes that was a bunch of wide sweeping moves. uh, Dude for move set that I would use for heavy dudes that are armored like tortoises or uh, armored drakes or stuff like that that could break their armor with like her shell breaker and a few other moves. And one that was just a generic kill the boss combo. And the other one was just situational depending on what I needed at the time.
Anyway, I do have some pretty big bones to pick with the story, and mainly because it has the most, I think, the most obnoxiously nefarious case of evil church syndrome of any piece of fiction that I have ever seen in like the last 5 years. Simply because it's not the usual approach. The usual approach, like the one that was used in Shining Resonance, is that you do the evil church by making the church comically evil. The problem in that I have with and this is just a personal foible, like nobody else is going to be offended by this. The problem I have with the way it's done in Tales of Berseria is that they created the church based on what your average 2-bit internet atheist thinks the church is. And I dug through the dialogue, and they explicitly use all the same tropes. They explicitly say all the same things as the sort of uneducated atheist leveling complaints at Christianity. It was actually pretty grotesque. Like, it's unbelievably cynical, and it's clearly polemical, because if it was not polemical, then they would have made them evil, as opposed to, you know, just duplicating all of the things that they complain about in real life.
Yeah, there's a it's a bit softer and why I didn't bring it up when you get to the end game because while you're playing through the story it's really egregious, but at the end there is some light at the end of the tunnel because you know the church has to exist in basically the same capacity it is now to get to the point it's at in that it becomes in the time of Zestiria. So it has to exist in almost the same form all the way through, and the game reveals more and more that that's mostly because Arthur and Melchior were nuts, and they're the ones that set up the populace to get brainwashed like this.
Yeah, The reason it bothers me is that what they are doing feels polemical, because it's the thing is, you've got there's a sort of weird dichotomy here where Zestiria is the prequel and the sequel. So Zestiria is like the one that didn't say what they wanted to say, and Berseria is the one where they retroactively fix things through a prequel. So even if you say that, the idea that the church is a fundamental evil is the message that they wanted to send originally. But
Eleanor's whole story is going in and cleaning up the mess that Melchior and Artorias make of the church. Like that's her story arc, so that she goes on eventually to reform the church and fix it so that it's back to what it was before those two bunkheads came in and decided to pull their shenanigans, basically.
Yeah, so I was sort of annoyed because I had all of the usual tropes that I find particularly annoying, like the assertion that nobody actually believes any of the stuff that they're saying, it's just all tradition, and all of the clergy are basically corrupt and none of them believe anything that they say, they're all hypocrites, all the stuff, the church is just a political edifice, there isn't anybody who actually thinks any of it is true, it's just a method of farming power, it's just a method of consuming people's money so that you can make big monumental political statements, all of the usual stuff. And it's frankly a headache to see that in a fantasy setting, because it doesn't feel like they're talking about the fantasy church. It feels like they're projecting their feelings about the real church into the fantasy world. There are a number of other things that are sort of like, they're more pointed attacks on particular doctrines and dogmas, but they could also just as easily be attacks on Shinto doctrines, so I'm willing to forget those. Though a Shintoist wouldn't find those particular things as offensive, but they would be offensive since it's obnoxious.
By the end of the game, the gods they worship are proven to be a real thing, and everybody's like, we need to actually pay attention to these things. And that kind of changes the landscape of the world entirely.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the way I expected it to go, but
there is one moment that is either going to make you laugh really hard or make you really angry, with this one recurring priest character who you can talk to and get a haha funny for every single party member, where he tries to take them into a stock, like, internet research what a confessional is.
Oh yeah, I saw that. But
yeah, he's the only thing people remember about the church from that game, so it didn't manage to make a statement in the West.
Well, I mean, even that though, that was exactly what you said it was. It was some internet research about what a confessional is. Like, this is a person who doesn't understand anything about sacramental theology. This is a person who doesn't understand anything about the sacrament of confession, and they have presented it as though, this is what it is like. This is what it is like, and here is the problem. This is the problem with the idea of atonement, is that you can't actually. Like, they never use the word repent at any point, because that would destroy the meme.
They take the Hollywood approach, where the act of confessing is enough. Told somebody what I did, slap my hands together, I'm done.
Yeah, and there's been no church in history has ever actually claimed that, but it's what every atheist claims confession is, and that was that's just one of many things that appeared in there that annoyed me about it. But it's in the grand scheme of things, it's a relatively small thing that, some atheist writer got his rocks off preaching his ignorance through the game, because by and large the story is pretty good on the character level as far as the characters are involved.
Yeah, and that's what you'll remember at the end of it. You'll remember the haha funny priest, and everybody gets woke that they need to go to church at the end of the story anyway. So.
Well, even that though, I think that's designed to be an indictment against Christianity, because God does not actually appear as a blazing figure on Earth on a regular basis in the Christian religion, and the suggestion that the fantasy stories always make is that in order to be a credible belief system, it should happen.
We're getting into pretty deep theological talk there, but yeah.
Well, it
well,
shouldn't be deep theological talk, but most people are uneducated plebeians.
Yeah. For you and me, it is probably as surface level as you can get, but for the rest of the world, we're probably driving them nuts. But yeah, I know what you're saying.
The gist is that I'm very much enjoying the game. I adore Magilu. I'm extremely sad every time she leaves the party because I live to see her talk lines. They're all hilarious.
The act like a dove. Did you get to the act like a dove scene yet?
Yes, I've seen that one. It was incredible. Everything Magilu does is incredible.
I love Magilu. There's another Magilu lover. That means we're wrong because you're like the only other person I know that loves Magilu.
Well, I prefer her. I think that both of her voice actors do a very, very good job, but they play the character completely differently, and in both cases it works perfectly, which I think was very, very impressive. Like, I like to listen to the Japanese dialogue for her because I like the particular dialect she uses. I think I've always found it very, very endearing. It's the same dialogue, same type of diction that Shuten Doji uses in Grand Order, and the same sort of lilting tone. The tone that she uses in English is also hilarious. Whereas her Japanese one is more sultry. Her English one is more campy. Like,
yeah,
she's got the same in English. She has the same sort of tone as Shakespeare in Fate Apocrypha does in Japanese. So that's how you can tell that that it's being played two different ways, because the same character can be played with Japanese diction, but both of them work, and that was the thing that really impressed me. They're two different characters, but they have the same dialogue and totally different ways of acting it out.
Yeah, Erica Lindbeck is the voice actress, and she impressed me in Fate Apocrypha 2 as like the only really good English voice actor, and I blasted a lot of the voice actors in English for that show. But she plays Mordred, and it's part of the reason I love Mordred in Apocrypha so much. She plays that character really, really well, and nails this hothead teen down really, really good in that. And she doesn't sound at all like she does with Magilu either. She has a really good range. Like, you can tell it's the same person, but only if you're really looking for it.
Yeah, but at any rate, I very much enjoy her character. She's absolutely charming in every way. I mean, she's a filthy turncoat a lot of the time. The only bad thing about Magilu is that I don't find her interactions with her little midget thing, particularly her Norman, whatever they're called. I don't find them particularly interesting. Mainly because Bienfu's just a whingy little brat. He's an obnoxious tumor on her character.
Yeah, Bienfu is not he exists. He's like a very Japanese edition that a lot of English folks aren't going to like, myself included. Like, the Japanese love Bienfu to death, but he is not popular overseas at all.
Yeah, I think that part of that is that when you add English to a character, you can't translate that.
It's possible.
Because in English, he's sort of blandly annoying. And I find him blandly annoying in Japanese as well, but he uses a lot of like weird diction and English and stuff that doesn't translate. Like, it's not quaint to a person who speaks English as their native language. It's just annoying.
Yeah. So sub or dub, and dub you just get generic cartoon character mascot voice.
Yeah, and sub you can see why he would have a fan base, but if you speak English already, you also don't really have any reason to like that.
Yeah. Another standout of the English voice cast is Aizen's voice actor, Jaffe. Not David Jaffe. I forget his first name. It's like Taliesin or something. And he's like somebody I don't know very well. He's shown up recently-ish and did a few roles back in the early 2000s. And I think he plays like Blanca in Street Fighter 4, and that's it.
But doesn't Blanca mostly just grunt?
Yeah, and growl and make like rainforest English occasionally. But yeah, he's not a very prolific voice actor. But I think he knocked it out of the park with Aizen.
Yeah, I think he's better than the Japanese voice actor. The Japanese voice actor's not bad, but he's a little bit on the bland side. But
Yeah,
other than that, I feel like they've matched them very well from what I've seen. Because I've played quite a few hours in English and quite a few hours in Japanese, and I think that I would say on average they're about as good as each other. The translation, I can't necessarily say the same thing because I've got a few bones to pick there that I'm not going to go into detail on. But I don't think that it's particularly.
It's best to save the actual writing until you finish the end of the story.
I see. Well, this is about the subtleties of translation, and like I don't speak Japanese, but I know when I'm being told something that's not in the actual dialogue. And
Yeah.
there are a few things there. It's very, very much the adaptation and not the translation. Like they've taken liberties in order to make it sound a little bit less janky because there are certain things that really would sound janky.
Yeah.
Particularly with terminology. Things that sound normal in Japanese for how Japanese fiction tends to sound, the tone for it, and their colloquialisms, like those colloquialisms do not work in English, and I understand the ones of those that have been left out, but some of them seem like they've taken a few too many liberties. Not really sure what's going on there, but
Yeah.
overall I don't think it's particularly intrusive compared to some that I've seen. Like I've seen really, really intrusive adaptations in the past where like they've basically picked a character and turned them into a meme lord or something. Like it's really horrible.
Yeah.
I hate when they do that. And they
There's no
haven't done
major. Yeah, there's no major total character rewrites like that. But yeah, the only voice actor in English that I didn't really like was Laffy's, and
I think
that's
Luffy's is a little bit smoother and more natural sounding in Japanese than in English. English is a little bit stilted.
yeah. Like Eleanor's VA was mediocre, but Laffy's doesn't handle the big dramatic moments later in the story very well in English.
I think that that's just because almost all Seiyu have more experience playing children in Japan than they do in the West.
Yeah, I don't even know the VA who does it. Yeah, she has Fire Emblem role, Tales of Berseria, and Etrian Odyssey role, and that's it.
I think that it's more natural for a Japanese voice actress to speak down to the child acting than a Western one. Like they're just almost always better at being childish.
Yeah, the other girl was relatively new when she did Laffy but she has a lot of credits under her belt, and a good chunk of them are smallish looking or kid looking characters, but you never know, they could be 18.
Yes, as you have found out during your week.
We'll get to foreshadowing. We'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I'm enjoying the game. I'm enjoying it more than I've enjoyed any of the other Tales games that I've played. Like it's just better along virtually every axis except for, Grace's absolutely exquisite combat system. Other than that,
yeah.
it's pretty much just better. All of the narrative stuff is better, and it looks gorgeous. Like if every JRPG looked like this, I would be happy. Like the only other one that is in the ballpark is Persona 5. Like
yeah,
this is the direction the anime genre is supposed to go.
Yeah, it's a brand new engine. Well, this is a revision of the old engine still, I think, and they're working on a new engine. So this is as far as they could take the old Tales engine with the HD makeover. And the only gripe I really have with it is the amount of objects they can render on screen is a little low, but what they do render is really pretty.
Yeah. And I think that the thing that I appreciate the most, and this is going to sound like an incredibly stupid and small thing, is that when you go up to a glowing thing on the ground and press X, the window that tells you what you got blinks up and you press it and it blinks away. There's no animation for picking it up. It doesn't fade in or animate in, and it doesn't fade out or animate out. You walk up to it, press the button again, you can go on with your day. Like,
You know, that just feels like it should be standard, but it isn't.
I get that you want to give the programming intern something to do, so you add a bunch of weird little flourishes and crap, but no thank you. I just want to get on with my day. That's where I live. I don't have that much time to play video games, so I don't want to spend it watching my character bend down and pick up a glowing thing on the ground.
Yeah. Don't pull the Legend of Zelda 10 rupees. No, we don't have to waste 10 seconds to do that. Just boop, 10 gil. Done.
Yeah, so it sounds like an incredibly minor thing, but to me it made a huge difference, because it means that the game isn't interrupting me all the time. I'm always doing something that I want to do, as opposed to being constantly interrupted. And
it feels like you're taking the amount of time away from your immersion to engage with the item that item usually is worth.
Yeah. The other thing that I don't like about it is the same thing that I don't like in every Tales game, is that their items are weird. Like their equipment management and upgrading system is always incredibly Byzantine and ridiculously complicated.
Yeah, the archaic title system that they still haven't got rid of.
And like, I hate the title system. I've left it on the default the entire time because I just don't want to muck about with it. And the upgrading is incredibly unintuitive. Like, I found that the only effective way to upgrade your equipment ended up being that you need to upgrade all of the trash that you get before you disassemble it.
Yeah, you need to upgrade it to a certain point to disassemble to get better mats, but get less of the base material.
Which just makes it makes everything take forever.
Yeah, in game, when I had to max out everything to get the trophy, this was not an easy trophy, by the way.
This is the opposite of being able to pick up items without bending down to get them. Like, this is the game taking away from what I want to do in order to make me do some bullcrap systematic stuff that I don't care about.
But you do not have to touch any of it until in game, thankfully. Slap a few +1 upgrades or +2 upgrades on whatever sword you got, and just go punch your way to the final boss.
Yeah, by and large, I found that your stats don't have a huge effect on anything.
And until you get like the bonus effects at +10, which requires stacks and stacks of 99 of the base material plus rare materials, yeah, you don't need that. Yeah, you know, that randomized third stat ain't worth it, bro.
Yeah, I don't care about that crap. I've always quite liked the systems that let you like keep item abilities once you dequip the item by learning them while you've got it on. Like, I'm a fan of that mechanic in general terms, but I find that I spend so much time obsessing over trying to learn everything that I don't even look at the stats on the item itself anymore.
Yeah, some items have equip effects that are just worth mastering, so you have it permanently. Some are not, but if you want the Chivo the collector list.
Like, I've just been obsessively doing, even things is like, oh well, when you're below 8% health, this applies. Like, even those ones. Like, yeah. I can't help it. I must learn them all. If there's not a star by their portrait, I'm doing something wrong.
You gotta do it for the Chivo. You gotta do it for every single item in the game for all characters. It is a mess. Took 3 playthroughs, by the way, to do it. Plus endgame on 2 of them.
Yeah. But
punch people with Velvet, use your break, hope you hit something that flies.
Laughing Raven all the way to the bank.
Yeah, Laughing Raven all the way home. And then go on a pirate adventure with Aizen and see his awesome story, and then go punch Arthur in the face and win the game.
I am really sort of confused about what the point of that ship scouting thing is. It's like, yeah, it's not much effort to do or anything like that. That's fine. But why is it there exactly?
It seems like they were trying to make a Facebook game as unobtrusive as possible and give you just some free crap occasionally. It's very helpful at in-game, and it's basically, from what I can tell, there just to be a bunch of old Tales references. Like, you'll eventually unlock an island that is just shaped like Tipo.
Because reasons? Were there
Because
people that
they
liked Tipo?
Yeah, Japan, he's the most popular dude from Xillia.
Somehow I'm not surprised by that.
But yeah. I'm sure we'll talk more about Berseria when you finish it, though. We've been on it for a while.
Yeah. Anyway, so I still have more to talk about. Because I watched a few more anime, and in some cases wished I didn't. Because apparently this season sucks, like, badly. That's basically the message I've been getting. That everything is terrible forever. The anime industry is dead. It's all over. That's not strictly true. There's some stuff is okay, but I feel like okay is about the best that we're getting. And even if I say it's okay, I don't really... I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling that it's okay. It's just... how do I... Right, okay, so... The most banal one that I watched was... I'm going to have to just look up the names. I can't remember them offhand. I watch too many of these things each season, and I always regret some of them, but... where are we at? The most banal and safe and didn't actually do anything. Merc Storia. It's bad. It's bad because it's boring. It's boring because nothing happens. Okay, that's not really true. But it smells like there might be a gacha game involved because the characters are that sort of character. Like, they're all like hyper distinctive in their dress and mannerisms, which smells a bit gacha gamey. I don't know that there's a gacha game attached to it. There could be anything. Could be like an RPG or whatever. But it's basically, it seems like a children's story, except it's a little bit, I don't know. It seems like a children's story sometimes, and at other times it doesn't. But by and large, it's just unbelievably bland. So it's about, basically, there's a cast of adventurers, basically, in the world that it's set, called healers. And rather than healing, their party members, what they do is they heal the hearts of monsters or whatever and make them less aggressive or something. And the main character is like a kid who has got this talent, and he has a companion who was a gift that he received from his father, who is currently missing, which was just a jar of water, but it turns out that there is a girl made of liquid who lives in it. And so he's got this sort of like midget girl who's really annoying, who follows him around everywhere and passes annoying commentary. And basically, don't watch it, it's crap. I haven't seen anything in it that makes me think it's worth watching.
Oh yeah, Capitan.
As Miss Beelzebub Likes is also bad. Don't watch it. It's supposed to be a sort of a fluffy fan servicey comedy of sort, I think, with sort of like a rom-com streak to it. But it's one of those shows that when you watch it, you know that they just set out to give you moe poisoning. Like, the characters are like fluffy archetypal individuals. So it's set in a hell which is indistinguishable from, Earth, and the demons, while they somehow have simultaneously are the results of rebelling against God, and also are in God's employ in order to provide temptations for people to overcome so that they grow in virtue or something. At any rate, all of the character, like the boss of hell at the moment, since Satan himself is evidently missing, is Beelzebub, who is like a airheaded blonde girl who loves fluffy things and sleeps naked, or something.
I see.
And
all not a big fly monster that casts Mudo on your whole team.
No, not at all. And in fact, has nothing in common with that, and it doesn't appear to have any significant abilities at all, other than administrative ones, since she has to run hell, which looks indistinguishable from Earth. And Who else is it? Belphegor exists also and is a what do they refer to? They refer to her as constantly urinating because she's got a social phobia that makes her need to go to the bathroom every time she gets nervous, and she gets nervous all the time. So she basically runs to the bathroom all the time.
This sounds really bad, dude.
And yeah, Azazel is like a huge burly guy who loves fluffy, cute things and doesn't talk and has a scary appearance and stuff. Like, everything about it is really bad. Just don't watch it, okay? Like, I fell on the grenade for you so that you don't need to see this. Don't see it. Conception is bad. I fell on this grenade too. It's an anime of the game of the same name, and it is exactly as bad as it sounds. Actually, it's worse than it sounds because it's executed badly. Everything about it I hate. So, yeah, just don't even. Like, it's fan servicey. There's sort of like, you know how sometimes a game can't just jam a sex scene in there. So instead they do something that in every case that is an allegory for sex, so that the main character isn't actually a man whore.
Yeah, this is apparently, I'm on a Wikipedia page for it. Apparently, this is a thing they do in the game as well, because it's not an eroge game.
Yeah, it's not. It's a fan service game, but it's not an eroge. So it's awful. Just don't watch it. Like, everything about it made me feel icky. Like, ooh. Like, it's not even... I don't know how to describe it, because it's not like there's lots of nudity, and there's not lots of sex or anything. In fact, there's none.
Lots of worse than Mana Dragons.
But, well, it's not even that. I don't even know how to describe it. It made me feel so grimy. Like, somebody was constantly winking and nudging me. Like, like they want to corrupt your mind to make you filthy minded. So they do everything in their power to make you.
Like you're a nerd that walks into a frat boy dude bro house, and they're showing you something on TV, and they're nudging you the whole time to look at all the girls in every single way possible.
Yeah, it's like that. Not that I've ever done that, but it sounds from your description like that. But, yeah, it feels like it's trying to corrupt the watcher. Like, if you're watching it, you're already, somewhat corrupt. So, yeah. I went in there knowing that there are cute anime girls. So sue me. The reality is, though, it wants you to look at them in the most filthy way possible. And it will go to no shortage of effort in order to make you. So I felt like it was somehow, despite not having the same sort of salacious content that another show might, it was somehow even more morally reprehensible. Because it wasn't presenting cheesecake to you, take it or leave it. It was trying to make you see it the way they see it. I don't know. Maybe that's just all taking place in my head and doesn't actually exist in the show. But that was how I took it anyway.
On a happier note, Erica Lindbeck also voices Futaba in Persona 5.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Just anything to get us away from that topic, because I don't know how to drive it.
There's something else that I saw that had her in it recently. I don't remember what it was.
She's in Phoenix Wright.
Oh, right.
T4 Apocalypse.
She actually played Marion in Shining Resonance, I think. No. Yes. No.
I can scroll down a bit.
I can't remember. At any rate, I remember seeing she played another character that was of interest to me at the time that I looked up. But, see if I can remember what it was. Because I remember thinking, oh, I didn't realise there was that extra connection in there. Not that there's a huge number of people in the...
She's, let's see. She's one of the Nier Automata girls. She's Monster Hunter World Serious Handler. Bunch of Fire Emblem characters. Super Dimension Neptunia, she has a character.
Oh yeah, that was what I remembered seeing. But
she plays Uzume.
There's not any shortage of there's a huge shortage of voice actors in the West anyway, so you're going to end up seeing a whole lot of overlaps. But occasionally they're amusing. But
I was just trying to get us away from awkward sex, but not sex talk.
This is just because Fern's not here, you know. But yeah, so that's 3 grenades that I've fallen on for everybody else so far this week.
You're gonna have to clean up after all them splooge grenades.
Yeah, it's just I don't understand why all of these things get made. Like surely they can't be making that much money. I mean, they're not imaginative waifus that are in there. They're not even really appealing ones.
We are not the target demographic. We cannot understand.
Like,
some people just love to get all that splooge grenade that you jumped on all over them.
I don't know. It's like there are, like, for instance, in Conception, there are a couple of girls that I think are cute and have nice designs and nice outfits and so on, but
foreshadowing.
They are explicitly for the purpose of leering at them, and they are not given any character that would redeem them in any other way. They're just like, oh well, we gave this character the absolute minimum necessary not to be an actual doll, and yeah, that's all you're getting. So yeah, it was. I don't even like. I bet that there's way more character to the Senran Kagura anime, which I haven't watched. I don't really intend to. I bet there's more character to the girls in there because from what I've seen of the games, there is. But like the don't watch those. Anyway,
next anime.
The other one, the last one that I'll talk about today, since I've been prattling on for ages, is the new season of A Certain Magical Index. It is. Don't even bother trying to watch it unless you're well acquainted not just with what happened last season, but with the franchise in general terms, because they give you way too much to process otherwise, and they don't explain it well enough. In a sense, it's good in that it follows directly on, but in a sense it's bad because the last time they released an Index series was yonks ago. So yeah, it doesn't really quite work. Most people will barely remember who Itsuwa is by the time you start watching this new season. So because she like just shows up a little bit in the previous story, but and then they do a lot of things. But like the worst example of this, or the best example, depending on your point of view, is the most recent episode, which cuts away from the main action and goes back to Academy City, and basically it's to set up what the underworld of Academy City looks like, to really illustrate the extent to which things are really falling apart since the formation of the inadvertently formed Kamijo faction, which is basically that beneath the surface Academy City is locked in a perpetual gang war between political factions composed entirely of students, because the students are all the superpowered ones, right? There are very few very few especially powerful power users amongst adult humans, because you know they're not they were the ones who developed the power development curriculum, so none of them have powers themselves, or at least not very many. So what you've got is this underworld where kids are behaving in incredibly unchildlike fashion and murdering each other just out of sight of polite society. But the way that they deliver this is basically you end up seeing the entire cast of the rest of the setting, who have all factionalized and are squabbling over something that is entirely unclear. So you get supplied with a whole bunch of characters who are never introduced, with a whole bunch of objectives that are never explained, and it's just complete chaos. Like, the amount of communication that happens per minute is virtually non-existent. Like, you aren't gaining data, you're just seeing things. So, in that sense, it's really bad. But if somebody was watching Index and Railgun episode to episode, back to back to back to back to back to back to back, you would be able to understand what exactly it was that they were doing by showing you that. But if you're picking up Index this season without doing a review, you're screwed. You're not going to understand anything that's going on. And you're not going to start understanding either, because it doesn't look like they're going to explain it.
I stopped at Index not too long after a certain character took a bullet halfway through his head.
Yeah, so there are about 3 cores worth of Index and 2 cores worth of No, not in cores. It might have been 4 cores. At any rate, there was quite a bit of railgun, quite a bit of index. I don't know. Did they ever animate the accelerator one? I don't think they did. Um, no,
I don't know.
I don't think they did. But he had a spin off as well.
He was just getting his groove back when I quit watching.
Yeah. Well, he never gets it all the way back, but he's joined up with one of the factions. I don't remember if they actually explain why in the previous season, because I didn't actually rewatch the last season either. I've got a bunch of books from the season from the series that I haven't finished reading yet. Some of them haven't arrived, the post, but yeah. So I didn't bother to do a review, but I'm going to need to because I have no idea what happened in episode 4. It was just distilled chaos from start to finish. So, yeah.
All right. This is about where we would take a break, but
yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to bring up.
Yeah, I would say we would give you some music to listen to, but you can watch what's probably fading still, and I need to check the thing when we get back.
What they've actually been watching, because I've been looking at my other screen where the anime list is they've just been watching Gilgamesh sort of glare at them.
I see.
So that's all that they've been seeing for the past 10 minutes is Gilgamesh sort of like looking at them like they're trash.
All right, so we are going to take 3 minutes. I think that would be a good idea because I need to run the restroom. And we will reconvene, finish False Week, do my week. I'll have to accelerate it because we're at an hour and a half. And we'll do some follow-up on some news and poke at some small stuff for saving for next week. We'll wing it. We'll see you all in a little bit. Hang on, we're getting a little bit of electrical buzz. Say pickle.
Well, I've already unmuted. We're live again.
Okay. It's okay. That's okay. It seems to be going away, but you had a bit of electrical buzz there for a sec.
It's probably because I ran over my headphone cables.
Yeah, if it gets worse, we'll cut the stream and fix it. But, yeah. So, we were at Balls Week.
No, we weren't. We're at the end of my week.
Okay. So, yeah. My week. I'm going to save one of the mobile games for next week, because I'll probably be continuing to play it through this next week, because I'm having somebody else pressure me to do it. So that foreshadowing is a whole 2 weeks in advance, and we've spent a lot of time on weeks already. We already talked about FGO, and that made up the bulk of my time, but the much more interesting thing I want to talk about is I got to play Halo 5 multiplayer for the first time, and the reason I didn't play it before was because there's no local multiplayer. But I got to play a simulated version of local multiplayer by going to a friend who has way too much money for his own good, but still swears he lives paycheck to paycheck, but he has enough to afford 3 Xbones and 3 different TVs to play Halo 5.
Wait, what?
Yeah. It's just as dumb as it sounds.
I can't afford that.
Yeah. This dude also is a consumer of many illegal substances I don't know how he gets the money for. But anyway, the dude invited me over to his house. He's like, okay, you haven't played Halo 5 multiplayer, you gotta check it out. It's pretty good. I'm like, okay. And the first thing that happened, not 10 minutes after I picked up that game and started playing, was, this isn't Halo. I mean, like or not like Halo, it's not really important. The important thing here is, Halo 5, just like Halo 4, is not Halo. Reach was moving in that direction away from not Halo with a sprint function and stuff like that. Stuff that does not belong in a Halo game. Iron sights, scopes on way too many weapons. All that stuff sounds really small. Add in armor abilities, and the game is a totally different series entirely. It does not feel like Halo 1, 2, and 3. Halo 1 had its roots growing out of the PC shooter genre, coming into a console space and trying to twist itself into that. And then Halo 2 got that formula a lot better and got online on console rocking and rolling. And then Halo 3 was about as good as you could probably make that gunplay without having to rely on button combos and focusing more on what the developers intended. But you run around a map, you already are going at your max speed when you run, you don't need a sprint. Precision movement and jumping is a thing, and you always have access to your weapon. This is very, very important, because when you sprint in shooters nowadays, you put your gun down. But in Halo, that was never the case, and was one of the big reasons I like the gunplay in it so much, is while you're moving, when you're moving at max speed, your gun's still out. You can still react to stuff that happens. You're not going to die while you raise your gun up again. There are no iron sights. You just have to manage the reticle center of the screen. It's a very simplistic system, but it's also a very fast-paced and fun one. And it makes Halo very distinctly Halo when it comes to console shooters.
So basically, what you're saying is that they're doing the get the Call of Duty kiddies by being Call of Duty thing.
Pretty much. That's the impression I got from Halo 4. Halo 5 is really weird. The lack of... The weapons in general, it's not as bad as Halo 4 where you could just spawn in with the best weapons in the game. Because somebody thought that was a brilliant idea. But in Halo 5, I kept asking what all these Forerunner weapons do. And he's like, oh, that's basically the beam rifle replacement. Oh, that's basically the Mauler now. I'm like, what? So they got rid of classic weapons that we're already familiar with. And instead of adding new innovative weapons, they just reskinned the old ones and called them new. What? Not to mention, I saw yet another remake of Midship that we played on. Like, that map was fun in Halo 2 and 3. In Reach, it was pushing it. And apparently they remade it for 4 and 5 as well. Like, I get that it was a pretty decent map, but it was a good map for a very specific reason. It was in Halo 2, and built for Halo 2 game mechanics, which had weapon placement as a big deal. It's just... The game just keeps offending me in new ways. The way the Halo franchise is going. It's fairly impressive. Like, I liked Halo growing up as a kid. I played primarily console. So my real introduction to shooters and getting really into them was the Halo franchise. I'd played them before, and I played Doom on PC and stuff, but I had not really gotten into the Quake scene, and I didn't have a PC that could really run the Unreal Tournament games or anything. So I played primarily on console, and Halo got me into shooters. And I have a lot of good memories about Halo. And it just seems like every time a new Halo comes out, it's less Halo and more Call of Duty. It is 100% losing its identity as a franchise.
Well, I mean, it's not made by Bungie anymore. Like, I'm
It's made by, yeah.
like Destiny 2 is probably more Halo than Halo is.
Well, even then, Destiny 2 and Destiny 1, the staff just picked up and left or got fired in Destiny 1 that was the original Halo team, but you can feel their influence in Destiny, definitely. But it feels like somebody took Borderlands and Halo and stuck them in a blender, and some generic paste came out. That's what Destiny feels like to me.
I'm not. I get that. I do. It's just I think that in the end, what was left of the team that made Halo were just handed expectations by Microsoft, and they had to meet them come hell or high water, and that was all that there was to it. Like, it doesn't matter what your vision is or what you hope to do or any of that stuff. That's not important. What's important is that you make the bottom line.
Yeah, and Bungie actually broke away from Microsoft and did something worse, though. They partnered with Activision. So that's how Destiny 2 wound up in the bucket it's in.
Yeah. But I think that there's enough... While Destiny is sort of grey-paced, like, then Destiny 1 was grey-paced to the pretty much the same extent that Destiny 2 was, so I don't think that they're actually losing ground, they're more sort of treading water. And if you're treading water, then, I mean, eventually they might figure out that, oh, well, we might actually need an identity if we want to exist in this market. So maybe there's something that can be salvaged from that. But Halo has just done nothing but go steadily downhill. Like, I thought Reach was really bad, and most people don't agree with me on that. But when I look at that campaign, what I see is a series of multiplayer set-piece arenas strung end on end for the length of a campaign, and that's all that it really is. The environments are not even remotely interesting.
My complaints with Reach almost entirely are leveled at the multiplayer. I don't have a whole lot of super negative feelings about the campaign because...
Well, the thing is that the campaign represents, in a lot of ways, their love for the universe, their love for the franchise, because ultimately Halo is still about telling a story. That's supposed to be what it is. It's supposed to be the Master Chief story. The fact that the multiplayer was very popular is neither here nor there, because it's still the fact that it is Halo is tied to the fact that it involves Master Chief. So,
yeah, and then the real problem with Reach is the chicken or the egg scenario. Were the maps just made with the multiplayer maps crammed into them as campaign, or were they cribbed from the campaign to be multiplayer maps?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's probably a little bit of both. I think that they wanted to save time on development in both directions, because Reach seems to me like, the Boo Saga. Like, this is clearly the work of somebody who really doesn't want to be here.
Yeah, and there are a lot of cool things in Reach, but there is one major, I'll call it a problem, with the campaign and its map design. When you get to those areas, specifically the ones that do become the multiplayer maps, that usually make up about 20 to 40% of a mission, depending. The tower at the end of one mission being a rather bad example that goes on forever. You have to make these maps to accommodate campaign, multiplayer, and variants of multiplayer, which include all the Spartan abilities, including the jetpack, which was also a problem I didn't like. And basically, these Spartan abilities have been the most un-Halo thing to happen to the game. Not quite as bad as randomized weapon spawns with pick your own starting weapon. That was the worst thing to happen that made it the most un-Halo, but this is the second most thing.
Yeah, I was under the impression that the thing that was characteristic of the older school of FPS combat that Halo branched off of was the control the rocket launcher space, control the
Yeah.
control the shotgun space, like that type of zone control.
Map control was always important in Halo, just like it was in the PC shooters. And up through Halo 3, that was 110% how things work. You spawned with an AR and a pistol in every single game, just about, or an AR and an SMG for some reason in Halo 2 in some maps, or sometimes you'd spawn with a battle rifle with some game modes. But there were power weapons on the map, and you did not want the enemy to get 4 free kills with a rocket launcher. That was bad. You didn't want them to get the Spartan laser and wreck whatever you're trying to do with the vehicles. Like, map control was important. But in Halo 4 onwards, and I don't know quite what the online multiplayer system's like, but you can set it up to do this in Halo 5. You can pick whatever you want to spawn with, and I'll use Halo 4 because I actually have a bit more reference for that, but you can set up your loadout to load with any of the basic non-power weapons, and the rest of the weapons on the map are 100% random. So that rocket launcher spawn area doesn't matter. It's just like a Call of Duty match, is what it boils down to at that point. You're just running around the map, shooting the first person you see. There's no strategy, no thought in your movement, no thought in your control of the map, no thought of where you are, what you can do. You're just using your brand new fancy sprint function to run until you shoot somebody. Like, it is... Don't like it at all.
There is a certain amount of map knowledge required for the Call of Duty style of play, but it is toward the end of making sure that your positioning is right in order to kill somebody, and you move dynamically around to favourable positions. It's not like the old school style of play was you had to make sure that you controlled the area because things are going to go real far south if you lose control of the area.
Intimate map knowledge back in the day was way, way deeper and more important. You had to know how to control an entire area. You couldn't plant yourself in one place or move yourself back up to high ground after you jumped down for a kill. You had to be able to plant yourself where you could see the enemies, react to the enemies, and stop them from getting to wherever they need to go once you've got control of a zone, and you need to know the different ways to break into that zone if you're assaulting it to try and get what they're protecting and free up that weapon spawn for somebody on your team to get. Like, this is a common tactic and was just intrinsic in gameplay, but was infinitely deeper than anything we see now in Call of Duty. Or as Halo 4 has proven, Halo 4.
I'm sure at high levels of play there are strata of depth that we don't see under common play, but
we're talking about decent at the game dude who plays the game online.
Yeah.
Not MLG Pro, just somebody likes playing the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, then on one hand, what you're talking about basically is a sort of a fusion of extreme accessibility, in that there's no sort of obvious depth that's needed in order to access the metagame taking place, and on the other hand, it's inaccessible in the sense that nobody at that entry level of play is going to comprehend the existence of another layer of gameplay because it's no longer there. Because the idea that you need to control areas of the map is intuitive. Once you realize that you really like this weapon and are effective with it, you're going to automatically understand that you want to dominate that area so that you're always the one who has it. Like, you don't need to learn that. The sort of map control that you need to learn in the Call of Duty style of things is more along the lines of, well, if I'm standing in this place, I have this many lines of sight that I can react to at any given point in time, and I'm less likely to be noticed before I notice somebody. Like, that's the analysis that they do, which is a different one, and it's way more subtle and something that largely builds up intuitively through huge quantities of experience and not really through, oh, well, I'm going to think about the strategy I'm going to apply here.
Yeah, they're both, to a degree, in knowing where you're going on the maps anyway in the older games, so a form of intuitive knowledge, but you can augment that intuitive knowledge with experience and with just your time with the game and learning the maps much better in the older games, I feel, especially on a lower, not as pro level. That just seems to make a whole lot more sense that you can put knowledge of the map you get through just playing the game into and incorporate that into play to make your level of play better than the older games.
But I think what's actually lying at the heart of all this, though, is that I don't think that big publishers see something like Halo. They don't see it as a game. They see it as an IP, and that IP is just something to be put on top of a game, as a skin for a game.
So they think Master Chief is the identity of Halo.
Yeah, that Halo might have an identity beyond the aesthetic trappings. Is not something that they think about, because you can't really see that on a balance sheet, right? Like, you see when something sells well because, oh well, it's got Halo attached to the name, so we'll make Halo Wars, and that will sell well because it's got Halo attached to the name, and that is the only reason it sold well, because it was a terrible game. I know you were MLG Pro at it, but the reason you were MLG Pro was probably because nobody was playing.
Me and your off tank were MLG Pro at that game back in your old guild right after I quit.
But
we were MLG Swag Pro at that game, and I knew the #1 player. But anyway, I tell that story every time we bring up Halo Wars.
When you sort of have started on that, let's diversify the IP into other genres, you're eventually going to end up with a batch of bean counters who only see the fact that it's the franchise. There's nothing distinctive about what makes it Halo is the fact that it plays like Halo, not just because it's got Master Chief. And this is the same exact mistake that was made with Dynasty Warriors 9.
Yeah.
Which has nothing in common with Dynasty Warriors other than it's called Dynasty Warriors. And they decided, what we're going to do is change up the formula. We've got this formula that's worked all this time, but you know what? Everybody's doing open world with crafting, so we're going to do open world with crafting too.
Yeah, and that they don't realize that totally doesn't fit their game. We're talking about a criticism strictly on the developer level at this point. That is who we're labeling this at. I don't know if it's even reasonable to expect most big CEOs to understand that much about the identity of a game and their IPs.
Yeah, well, what CEOs will understand though is that somebody says that they need longer to make it because it's not the way they want it to be. Well, they could just do it the same as this other thing and it'll be done faster. Let's hire people who'll do that instead. Yeah. Like, the Bungie's employees left for a reason.
Yeah, they fired Marty O'Donnell, one of the best composers in the industry, and he sued the crap out of him. He took Activision to the court, and he won. Good on you, Marty.
But yeah,
I always liked your music.
It's not something that is purely the developer's fault, and it's not something that is purely the production side, the production side's fault, the publisher side's fault. Yeah. It's something that it's a collective flaw, I think, when everybody is heading in the wrong direction and nobody wants to turn around.
Yeah,
either because somebody has a new vision or because somebody is looking for the utilitarian dollar over sort of continuing the franchise, and that's why you get franchise burnout, right? And the latter ones get worse and worse. Like, if you look at Assassin's Creed, for instance, you can directly compare, say, a recent but not late entry like Unity, like leaving aside the fact that they're all full of bugs, like full to the brim of bugs because Ubi.
We'll assume we have a playthrough that is relatively unobtrusive in bugs.
You look at something like Unity and just take that and how it plays and how it animates and compare that to Odyssey, the new one. The new one looks like trash. It's garbage. The free running is bad, the combat is bad, the graphics look bad, the story is bad. Everything is completely sanitized, and everything is vectored in a political direction. Like, what you have here is not the old Assassin's Creed at all. It's an Assassin's Creed skin on an imitator, basically.
Yeah, and you run this risk with every iteration of your game with the more changes you make to it. And, like, that's why Halo was very cautious with the changes it made and kept its releases spread out as well. This used to be standard practice, to prevent franchise burnout and make the changes more significant as time went on. But when you get into the Activision style or Ubisoft or EA style of publishing, the loss of identity escalates really fast in how fast it goes. Because the more you change, the less of the original product's there. And if you're not very, very careful with it, you'll wind up with a divide in your fan base that goes, okay, at this point, these games are not the same games anymore. And that's exactly what's happened with Halo.
Yeah,
And they usually draw that line right smack through the middle of Reach, with half the community saying it falls on one side and half on the other.
I don't think that people like it seems really really obvious, particularly with how things have gone, but franchise fatigue is real, and you can't ignore it. And the more they try and ignore it, the worse things are going to get. Like, you would think, I think that part of what is hiding all of this is the sort of the political war that is going on in the culture as far as it pertains to video games. Because I mean, if you look at Battlefield 5, right, the reason the surface reason that Battlefield 5 was a humongous flop was because of the sheer contempt that the developer publisher had for the people who they wanted to buy the game. Like, just absolute contempt, no interest in them whatsoever, and that was on a political basis, that people didn't want, you know, the hero of a World War II game on the Western Front to be a disabled woman. Because I mean, how many? Let's be real. How many amputees do you think were fighting on the Western Front, let alone women? So, like, they've got a good reason to object to it on a political basis. However, what that did is covered the fact that the game was a cash-in.
Yeah.
The political thing offended a lot of people, and they may not have bought the game on it, but that didn't save the fact that the game was deeply, deeply franchise fatigued. Like, there's very little development in concept and gameplay in any of that stuff. Like, it's pretty much just the cash-in, and there's not much else to talk about than the cash-in. And
yeah,
so because we've got all of this other political hoo-ha, that franchise fatigue is going to go unnoticed, and either the people in charge will have lost enough money that they're going to sunset the franchise for a while, or they won't have lost enough money and they'll just assume, oh, it's because they're deplorables, therefore it's not our fault. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of competing factors that are obfuscating, or people are allowing it to be willfully obfuscated, that these people are spending their franchises like water. It's not a case of oh, well, they're gradually wearing out over time and they're not being imaginative enough to come up with new ones with sufficient regularity to keep things going. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that most of these places are burning their franchises to the ground with yearly or close to yearly releases of new iterations, and there is no franchise that can sustain that. Like, if you look at the real massive long runners like Zelda and Mario, and that Mario doesn't have a new big name Mario platformer game every year.
Well, this used to be something people just understood. Like, you know, the reason there was a gap as big as it was between, you know, the Halo games, bringing it back to the original example, they just understood they couldn't just throw a new Halo game out there the next year with a few tweaks. Like, they had to make the changes meaningful enough where the community was excited for them. They had to take the time between Halo 2 and 3 to develop Forge and Theater and change up the weapons and stuff. Like, but they still kept it as it, you know, feeling like a Halo game. They did that pretty well. I think the Halo 2 to 3 jump is a good example of how to iterate a franchise. But now, if you go to, like, the Ass Creed model, they either don't change anything, or they radically go and just completely sanitize the whole game and change so much that it doesn't resemble the original product anymore and doesn't fit with the franchise.
Yeah, I don't know. This has been a long-running problem, and I think that it's going to continue to be a problem until such time as somebody hits the wall and hits it violently. Like, someone big is going to go down over this. Like, it could be Activision. Could take a real gut punch and not be able to come back from it. It's entirely possible that could happen.
Yeah, just if all of a sudden an Ass Creed or a Blops didn't sell at all, that would send a pretty clear message.
Yeah, I think that
right now we're stuck in this political argument with everything. Whether meaning to or not, that eats up discussion space for when people want to talk about other issues in games too. Like any of the aspects we've touched on in the past 30 minutes about game identity, they're not touched on because the political discussion is completely overwhelming discussion of any part of game development, and that's all that can get talked about. Because it just is frustrating because there are a lot of things in games like now I really would like to talk about, like identity of games through gameplay and stuff like that, or franchise fatigue. But you can't find a whole lot of room to stick that into a conversation in the public space with all the political crap going on.
Yeah, well, they've moved the discussion away from video games because the leftist mantra is that everything is political. Like, you can't have anything not be political. Everything has to be a statement. Everything has to be a testimony of your beliefs. You can't just enjoy anything anymore. You have to make sure that it's properly ideologically pure. So you can't think about, topics that are neutral in that regard. So, yeah, this problem is going to get worse, and somebody is going to end up suffering for it. Like, there's going to be it wouldn't surprise me if they've put too much money into Battlefield 5 because it costs a gajillion dollars to make those games, and they're not making it back anymore. So, it wouldn't surprise me if we end up in a situation like that where there's huge layoffs at one of these big companies who are supposed to be industry leaders because they have been complacent for so long.
Yeah, I think the way this will probably go down is some company will burn out all their franchises almost at the same time, and people will just start to get franchise fatigued with the current batch we have, and with no new ideas coming into the market, with all those franchises being burned so hard that they won't have anything to lean back on anymore, and they'll have to lay people off. That is more than likely what's going to happen. I'm putting my bets on either EA because they're looking like they might be hitting the shaker pretty soon, or Ubisoft.
Yeah, I think is it EA or Activision that make Battlefield? Activision makes Call of Duty, right?
Yeah, Activision owns Infinity Ward, and they make COD Ops.
Well, it's not just Infinity Ward that makes Call of Duty anymore. They've got a bunch of.
That's just how I remember who owns Call of Duty is Infinity Ward, Activision, COD Ops.
Yeah. At any rate, I think EA is probably the likely one because they are going to have to face, Battlefront and Battlefield and that humongous mess.
Yeah.
Like the Star Wars thing, the loot boxes thing, they're being propped up by loot boxes in FIFA and Madden and the NBA thing that nobody plays.
Oh, a lot of people play them sports games, but they're so far away from our demographic, we don't even know they exist.
I didn't realize the NBA one was very popular. I know that Madden and FIFA are extremely popular, but
I don't think it's as popular. But if the frats I've visited back in my college days are anything to go by, them NBA games are popular, man.
Playing NBA games is probably mainly about buying shoes from loot boxes, I'd say.
That's racist.
Is it?
Probably is. Everything we say is racist, remember?
I mean, it's a good bet that if I say something, it's probably racist, but I might not know it is, because apparently the way you can tell a person is racist is if they think they're not racist. If you think you are racist, then you're still racist, because you think you're racist, but, Kafka traps are delicious. But, yeah, so...
I like the dictionary.
Let's move on.
It's my friend. So yeah, that's all I'm going to touch on with my week. I'll save the other stuff for another week when we got Fern. And because we've been going forever already, so you can have that as just a fun discussion topic I thought would be fun. Okay. We had posted not an insignificant amount of stuff to talk about. And, well, we thought we'd have Fern. And we didn't have Fern.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of this we actually want to go through.
Well, we'll just start going and we'll see where we end up.
All right. The do of the week. The Shin Megami Tensei If translation is done. So the terrible one we've had is not the only one anymore. Apparently, this one's fairly decent. So if you are interested in the series that eventually became and spun off into Persona, it's Shin Megami Tensei If, and it's got a fan translation finally, but it's really old and really not very good. But if you're an SMT nut, go for it. I've already played the really, really bad translation, so I won't be doing that. I don't want to sit through that game again.
They aren't gonna like C&D fan translations, are they, or anything?
They could try, but it's already out in the internet.
I guess that's true.
I mean, it's the Metroid whatever another Metroid 2 remake problem. Yeah, you send the C&D after it gets released, but it's been released. People have it.
Yeah, it's already out in the wild.
Yeah, like the current download host for it has 100,000 downloads. Like, you can't stop it. So yeah. The other two things are follow-up. Or the next two things on my list are follow-up, and you have a third bit that goes with them. Do you want to do those?
Alright, get us started, as I don't want to leave all of my monitoring stuff on the background.
So, Vol actually has a better understanding of how Sony is handling this, but
I'm not sure anybody has a concise understanding of it, because it's so Byzantine, but...
So, this is a follow-up from the Booby story last week, because Fern's not here to stop us.
No, we had Fern last week. It was the week before last, wasn't it?
No, it was last week. We're two Fernless weeks in a row.
Are we?
I think so.
Can't be.
I think so.
No, I would have gone mad by now if that were the case.
I think it's a thing, dog. But yeah, so basically, what this boils down to is there's been a petition to stop censoring Japanese games, and I wondered why this was, and another article I found and what Valso posted cleared it up. So, Sony has taken or somebody at Sony, I should say, has taken the recent censorship of the booby mode in the booby game to heart at Sony, and decided they need to run with this.
Like, in a big way. Not just for a localization, for a Western release of one game, but as general policy worldwide.
Yeah. So, they've just said they're gonna start censoring games in the booby modes in Japan now.
Yeah, like everything, including their adult visual novels. Like, I don't know what... I've seen some of the screenshots of the post-censorship adult visual novels, because I was curious as to just how censored are they, and I don't even know how... It's like, it's not even censorship anymore. It's like, there are things that aren't censored, rather than there are things that are censored. Like, you know how they like to use the ray of light thing? Because, you know, when it comes to adult games on major consoles, they're always a little bit censored, right? Because you can't get through with everything being shown. Because in Japan, they've got very strict laws regulating that kind of thing. But in this case, it's like everything but the characters' actual faces are covered by light. Like, just, it's blocked out with white.
Yeah.
And that's the standard that they're requiring. At any rate, so basically what we've got here is a situation where they have decided that they're going to use their momentum in the market. Instead of doing something productive with it, they're going to use it to levy massive censorship. And what I would say is probably the worst possible time, because it's just coming on the heels of Steam deciding, okay, so what we're going to do is create a segregated category for adult games, which will be able to be put on Steam uncensored. Okay, so Steam has decided, okay, we're going to do uncensored adult content now, and we're just going to put it behind an age gate, so that people who don't want to see it, like me, can just turn it off and never ever see it. And people who do want to see it can just turn it on and have it display along with everything else. So the time is ripe for you to compete with Steam and not to absolutely bend over. But they've decided that their most profitable use of their time is indeed to go for Macintosh.
Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh. I think we've gone full Macintosh. That song is stuck in my head. It won't leave.
So they've put in place a whole bunch of regulations now, really aggressive censorship regulations, which have been preventing things from being put on Sony consoles. Things where Nintendo has capitulated and say, no, we aren't going to censor. Steam has capitulated, says we're not going to censor. Sony has now decided that they are going to be the new censors, and they have leveled this at every kind of game imaginable, except for major Western titles. So all of the sex scenes in, say, Witcher 3, Mass Effect, yeah. Witcher 3, like Witcher 3 is a pretty graphic in places.
Yeah,
but they're all going to be physics. They're all going to be preserved. Like they can go through, and part of the reason, not the whole reason, because they were always an exception for reasons that had never been explained to anybody. But part of the reason seems to be that they have decided that they're going to make it so that if you want to appeal for your product to be allowed on the PlayStation under the adults only classification, you must make your application in English. Most of the adult content that has historically been released on a Sony platform has been made by small Japanese visual novel companies who might not have anybody on staff who speaks any English. And so
yeah,
this is a humongous roadblock to them producing their content, period, if they decide that they're going to cooperate with Sony.
So yeah, this is all but for certain somebody in the Western dev sphere or somebody that just has some burst of ideological insight over on the Japanese end getting a whole lot of power really quick and going on a power trip.
Yeah, this is one of those things. Like that time that we talked about, not in the too distant past, where a whole bunch of stuff just disappeared off of Steam overnight for no apparent reason other than it was considered too salacious by somebody who was reviewing content. And it seemed that this had not actually been passed along the chain, it had just been done. And
yeah,
this is happening at a much higher level. This is happening at a policy writing level. So it's somebody, probably somebody who cares too much in conjunction with somebody who doesn't care at all, who is writing this policy and implementing it widely. And this is just everything about it screams market suicide. Like,
if we were on the marketing staff for Sony, we'd be like committing seppuku right now.
Pull up, pull up, pull up. We can't do this. Like
if Sony had us on our marketing staff, we'd be screaming at the CEOs, this is a bad idea. Whiteboards, pointer fingers, big giant pointy things teachers used to point at the screen. Like, everything. Like, don't do this.
Like, anybody who listens to the show knows that I am no fan of out-and-out adult content. I think that it's generally corrosive to society as a whole, and I would be happy if it all just went away. It's not going to go away, and you're going to do serious harm to the market in general if you try and make it go away using censorship played from just one single angle like this. Like, if every major platform decided to get together and say, oh, okay, so we want to go back to the days of yore and we don't want to have adult content on our platforms, then somebody else could rise up and provide the adult content platform. And there are people in the market who currently do that. Now, everybody who wants a slice of the action, though, is now getting on board with that. And while I have a negative opinion of that in general terms, in order to avoid a situation where we end up with the major players in the market ending up in a sort of distorted monopoly or duopoly position, we need to make sure that things sort of like move in a stable fashion. And having one person just decide to run amok and censor everything and use their weight in the industry to suppress developers this is about the worst way that you could possibly decide to temper the spread of adult content. Like, if you are on board with the agenda here and want to see everything censored, this is still idiotic. Like, this is still the worst way you could do it.
Moreover, if somebody has this power, and they somehow by magic manage to hit all the right things for you, they're going to get another target after a little bit of time. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And they're going to hit something you like eventually. This is how censorship works. It expands. It's an expression of power either by an individual or a group. And they will continue to express as much of it as they're allowed. This is how it always, always works whenever a new policy or anything like this is instated, unless somebody backpedals real fast, like because it explodes in their face.
Yeah, I don't know at what level all of this is operating, and I doubt we will have the privilege of finding out. This is one of those things, much like the Steam debacle, that will go on in the back room and will be sorted out in the back room, and we will only see the results. But what everybody was afraid of before was a situation where the West was being held responsible for all of this, and therefore eventually the end result was concluded to be that the West just doesn't get video games anymore. Which, you know, that was a real danger. That was a thing that could happen. It was a potential outcome. But now we're in a situation where somebody has just decided to, you know, with evidently very little actual thought, just decided, okay, we're going to go ahead and do this. And so the victims that we've talked about so far were mainly Senna and Kagura. That was the key one, because it is such an unabashedly booby-centric game with no real other purpose in a lot of ways. But
Got to dial the boobies down from 12 to 11.5.
But the situation now is that we've started to see other things have been stealth censored. The one that I found out about today was Warriors Orochi 4, the game that Fern just got on the PC, has apparently been stealth censored in the idiotic way of just removing all the jiggle physics. Like, that's the only thing. The only thing they did.
Yep.
They just removed all the jiggle physics.
Hate to break this to you, folks. Most of y'all are probably guys. If girls don't wear bras, the boobies jiggle. Now, they don't quite jiggle like they do in the video games, but they're not statues either.
At any rate, so I don't have my copy of that because I got the PS4 one, which we're now hearing is censored. So I'll be able to confirm that when that shows up, whether or not that's true, that all the jiggle physics has been removed in order to satisfy some kind of censors. But yeah, there's been a lot of visual novels have been hit by it, who have been forced to either implement massive amounts of light bars to censor things, or to just not get, or they'll just not get released. Other games have been denied release in the West. It looking like more and more of them are going to be forced to censor in Japan as well. It's basically, it's not looking very good.
This is what we were afraid of in the end, right? Less video games for us.
Yeah, it's not even just us now, though. It's less video games for everybody, the way things are going.
Yeah, this is less... Oh, I meant us specifically as individuals. But yes, everybody now has less video games because of this.
Yep. Because
it doesn't matter what you think about these video games, because eventually policies always spread. Some type of video game will get hit, and you will not see that video game because of this, if this keeps spreading.
That sounds like right-wing politics, Ari.
That sounds like the truth. They can get over it. There's historical precedent for this. I will go get every court document and every court case ever that's instituted a new law as my proof.
Yeah. Regulation spreads. It never restricts itself. The more regulation you have, the more you get. The more government you have, the more you get. That's always the way it is. It's always the way it will be, because it is the natural state of things. The Americans are fortunate enough to have thinkers involved in the founding of their country who wrote things like the Federalist Papers, where they discuss these topics in a philosophical sense. So it's known stuff. Most of our nations were set up by force rather than diplomacy. So we aren't that fortunate. We don't have those documents in our heritage. Americans tend to seem to want to squander that stuff. But generally speaking, you can't restrict the growth of regulation, because the more regulation you have, the more it wants to have. It's like the bureaucracy must expand to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy. So
yeah.
It
sounds like a joke, but we are 900% serious.
Like
This always happens.
I am not personally a believer in the grand libertarian project where everybody gets free to do everything what they want in a anarcho-capitalist society. I don't believe in that, because I think that moral precepts are more fundamental than anything else, and that includes licentiousness. So I'm not 110% on board with libertarianism the way a lot of people who have listed to the right are these days, but I do 100% not want excessive additional jabbing into freedom in order to execute an aim that is really not clear. Like, because I'm generally speaking, I would be on board with increasing the morality level of the content we consume for entertainment. But
no policy or law that states that will stop there is the problem.
Yeah, because you can't do it by law. Like, morality is a product of the will and spirit of the people who have it. It is not a product of the government and their pens and phones. And it's not a product of the CEOs in the boardroom. It's not a product of any of that stuff. It's not... and the thing is that I don't think that there's any connection between, a fundamental desire for moral purity and the censorship either. Like, way back in the day, there might have been a misguided connection between the two, but I don't think that there is this time. I think that this is probably somebody really, really, really wants to push the anti-soggy knees angle here, and they have found an ally in a high position of authority who they have managed to scare by talking about the fears that a lot of Japanese developers have voiced, that the Western market is becoming too dangerous because of the rise of leftism. Like, a lot of people don't seem to realize the extent to which the Western world has become a political joke in the East. Like, the insult du jour the insult of the moment, at least, or in China, for silly Western behavior like this, is white left. Like, if we, I don't know what it's actually, what the word is in Mandarin or whatever, but that's what it translates as. Like, white left is an insult in China. Like, it's not a description, it's an insult. That's all it is. It's because of this behaviour becoming so pervasive, this sort of agenda pushing to the expense of all other things, including your own dignity and so on and so forth. Like, this sort of thing is how they view the West now, and because of that, you've got developers in Japan who are coming out and saying, like, well, I wanted to develop it this way, but the Western market might end up being off limits to me if I do. And so eventually you end up with people saying, oh, well, the Western market is too. It's just not worth it. So the fields are basically ripe for somebody to use this as a scare tactic to force a sufficiently pliable executive into line. And I think that that's probably the way in which it's been approached. They think that what they're doing is saving their market share by preserving the Western market, because the Western market is now viewed by the East as this sort of uniformly ultra-progressive society of people who are terrified of anything that might offend them.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm letting you do your thing.
Yeah, it's what I'm saying is that this is another one of those situations where the world that the media projects is being taken by people without first-hand experience to be the actual world, and this is of course why so many people have taken up the fake news cry, and which is the exact same sort of thing that Gamergate was objecting to back in the day, is that the world as presented by the media edifice is not the world as it is, and now it is interfering with our video again. So this is why, like, my console of choice is a PS4. That's the one that I've got. I will stop buying games for it. I don't have any choice, because I don't want this to spread. If I find out that a game's got essentially, like, I already paid for Warriors Orochi, I'm not going to give it back. You know how much it costs to ship things all that way. But yeah, I'm just
They'll
going
they'll
to.
send you a refund for half the shipping cost.
Ugh. I'm going to have to bite the bullet, suck it up, and vote with my wallet, because we can't allow this sort of thing to spread. We can't allow this sort of diktat to interfere with the market. The freedom of the market is what allowed video games to expand this much to begin with. Even though I don't want to see the market sort of like get taken over by adult games and games that have, you know, a ponderously absurd amount of sex scenes in them or anything. Like that's not what's going on here. That's not what's happening. It's not what's being prevented. This is just
what a world we live in now, where the two Christians are the ones defending the booby games.
Like, I mean, this is I don't want to defend porn. I think porn is bad. I think it's bad for you, and I think it's bad for people in general. But the reality is that if you decide that that's going to be under the umbrella of censorship, sooner or later, something one notch down from that will be, and one notch down from that, and one notch down from that, and eventually all the content we have will be so sanitized that it will be unrecognizable, and that's always the way this stuff goes. Like, the slippery slope is a fallacy, but it is a fallacy because that the slope will be slippery does not follow logically. It's not because it doesn't follow pragmatically, because it does. You give people an inch, they take a mile. That's always the way it goes. So yeah, I don't like this. Sony is making a very bad decision. I think everybody can see Sony is making a very bad decision. Steam has made the opposite decision. They have basically given me what I wanted, because remember, way back when there was this big debacle and it seemed like Steam was removing all of this stuff, and I said, you know, I would be happy if they did. I would be happy if Steam was a clean platform, but not like this. But Steam gave me what they wanted. I get to have a clean Steam, because now all of the sex scene stuff can be removed. I don't have to see it. I can just turn it off. And I can use Steam as a clean platform, so I'm not constantly being fed naked boobs every 5 minutes. Although it's still sort of happening because people are sort of trying to cheat the system now. But, you know,
but
Valve did their bit, and I'm content with that. But what Sony is doing is not that. What Sony is doing is basically dictating the content we'll consume. So, you know, they're going to vote themselves out of the market at this rate.
That is a good way to watch your investors pack up and go.
Well, they've probably sold it to the investors initially as a good idea.
Yeah, give it a quarter.
Yeah, we'll see how the earnings go. Once people sort of realise it, I don't think it will last. At least I would like to think that it won't last. I would like to think that it would go the way that the Steam debacle did, where they realised that someone had managed to accrue authority quietly enough that they were able to run amok this way, and it needed to be brought into line. But the situation here, though, it's like what we saw at the end of the PS2 generation was Sony had become so spectacularly complacent and arrogant that they thought they didn't need to answer to anybody, much less the market. And the first 5 years of the PS3 generation were ridiculously bad for Sony. Like, they couldn't have been much worse. They got absolutely shellacked by the 360. They pulled their heads in, they redeemed themselves to some extent, and Microsoft did the same thing and beclowned themselves with the Xbox One. So basically, I think that I would not be surprised if we see a system where each major player takes a turn to do something outrageously stupid.
It follows logical market trends. This happens when companies get complacent. Their competitor goes, "Oh crap, I got to step up my game, or I'm going to lose to them," and they get complacent, like, "I got this. I can do whatever the heck I want." They do something dumb, and then their competitor one-ups them.
The thing is that you don't need to be dumb. You don't need to. You could just, like, not. How about not? How about we do not? Not sounds good.
Unfortunately for us fans of Eastern games, Sony's really our only outlet for those.
Yeah, the Xbox One has not been a good system. Like, in this generation, you can't really switch around. And I don't really want to do everything on the PC because my computer's a toaster, and it's a nuisance to upgrade a PC because of the amount of sheer work that I have to put in to do it. I'm not very good at these things, but yeah, I'll have to just vote with my wallet, and I hope everybody does. Like, you know, I like having cute anime girls in my game. I don't purchase or consume adult content, but I don't really like the idea that I'm not the one making that choice. Like, that's not what morality looks like. Enforced at the corporate level is not what morality looks like. So
No, there's
not
not a whole lot more to say about it.
Yeah, I think
if I go too much into this, it's going to delve into booby jokes.
Yeah, and I don't really want to face Fern again and admit that we turned the show into one about boobies.
You said it, not me. If we don't turn this one into one, though, it'll be a little lopsided. But that's natural. It's okay. They're always a little lopsided.
Anyway,
Stretching the joke too far, probably. Yeah. Let's go on.
Grab another topic.
The rest of them are pretty minor. One's a rehash that's just more follow-up. We already talked about, so I'm gonna skip that one.
Talk about the jackets.
Okay, let's do the jackets. Okay, so we don't need Fern for this one. Oh boy. So, Capcom, we figured out where at least some of the Capcoming is. You can, for the low price of somewhere in the ballpark of, it's like 750,000 yen, but at the end of the day, all this stuff translates to around
just take
4,
2 zeros off.
Yeah, $4,000 to $9,000 US. Yeah. So that is what you're looking to pay if you want your choice of, depending, you pay depending on which jacket you get. You get Nero's jacket with the arm sleeve torn off for around 7.5 grand. You can get Dante's DMC5 jacket with the collector's edition of DMC5 for around $9,000. Or you can get the new character who nobody knows and looks like an emo twat for $6,000. Not 100, just thousands of dollars.
Okay, now it's silly. Yeah, okay, it's silly. But everything we do as gamers and nerds is silly. So, like, where exactly does this sit on the scale of silliness? Like, what I thought when I looked at this was, first of all, I thought, wow, that's expensive, because that's the normal reaction for a normal person to have, right? But
yeah. Then you thought of Ari.
Number one,
he might pay for that jacket.
Well, yeah, that thought did cross my mind. I'm not going to say it didn't, because it did, and then it crossed back the other way, and then back the other way again. But more importantly, like, designer clothing always costs stupid amounts, especially if it's a limited run. So, like, I was like, okay, so limited run fashion clothing, it always costs an insane amount. Maybe there are gamers who are actually into that type of asset purchases. And what's more, it's also, like, it's a fashion product that people who don't normally care about fashion products might actually care about. And, you know, the Dante one at least doesn't look too bad, you know?
Yeah, but it's no cowboy jacket like the one in DMC4, though.
But it's also Dante's jacket, which is something that the average cowboy jacket doesn't have. So,
it took me a full, 15 seconds to tell myself don't do it.
Okay, so what that led me to thinking, though, was, okay, well, the reality is, this is way better than the sort of stuff that we get. Because the stuff that we get in limited edition games, it's limited, yeah, but it's only limited by the fact that people will only carry them for a little while and then they'll throw them in the trash. Because none of that crap is worth anything. None of that crap is interesting. Like, it's always, like, often very low quality figures or, you know, art cards.
The Easter eggs.
That you know, you might pin to the wall for a little while till you get bored of them. The Easter eggs. The suitcase full of light up Easter eggs. There's another one. Like, this stuff is crap. It's not cool. And it's not limited edition. It's not something you can buy and be proud that you've got it. It's all just garbage. The Japan always gets way cooler limited edition stuff. Like, the top price tag is immense, it's true, but Japanese otaku are way crazier on average than Western ones, for starters, and on top of that, like, some of this stuff is actually worth having. Like, you could look back on it and say, oh, this is that cool tchotchke I got with that game or whatever. Like, they're always just way better. Like, the one for Extella Link that we aren't getting, but the Japanese got, is a full Fate-themed set of Mahjong tiles. Like, deluxe quality, not like nasty cheap plastic ones, but like proper Mahjong tiles that are all done up in with Fate iconography. Like, that's actually really, really cool. If I bought that, then I would learn to play Mahjong so that I could use them. Like, that's cool. I think that's cool. So sue me, cool. I think it's cool. And generally speaking, I think that the crap that we get instead in the West is garbage.
Just keep in mind for a minute, despite the fact that I am in love with Dante to an unhealthy level, from his rugged chin to his chiseled pecs, it took me 15 seconds to say $9,000 is too much to pay for his jacket in the game I haven't even playtested yet. That's how much better the quality of this stuff is.
Yeah, it's just cooler. Like, it's always bargain basement. And the thing is, I don't think that it's ever really been tested. It's like they've never really decided, oh, well, we will try and bring this over to the West as well and see what the uptake is like. Let's see what the level of fanaticism is in the West for this type of stuff. We can do that. That won't put us out unduly. They could do that. I mean, like, what do Western companies do with their Western game releases? It's always underwhelming crap, like a tiny Master Chief helmet, or, you know, a Pip-Boy thing that holds your phone.
I have the cat helmet.
Now, if that was a full-size, like, if that was like a full-size movie prop level quality helmet you could stick on your head, that might actually be cool.
I put it on my mom's dogs.
Yeah, but that's not really the same thing. I mean,
they're Yorkies.
Yeah,
it fit.
But
it was the perfect fit, actually.
It was a missed opportunity to have a real helmet, though. Like, there's no getting away from that. It could have been cool, and it wasn't. And this is always the way.
I know. All we got was the Mimi Cat helmet.
Like, just let us have cool stuff now and again. Like, you don't need to bring a lot of it. It's true that not many people are going to shell out, you know, $9,000 for Dante's jacket or whatever. But
if you see somebody walking down the street with what's clearly Dante's jacket, you'd be like, bro, you're awesome. Let's go have a conversation.
Well, what's more, like, you don't need to bring very many. You just say, okay, so we're going to bring 25 of these things over, ultra limited edition. These are the only ones that are going to leave the Japanese market. Start the bidding war. You can't tell me that there aren't going to be at least 24 absolute Devil May Cry fanatics who will sell their grandmothers to get a hold of the thing.
I don't have any grandmothers left.
But, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I wish we got stuff this cool. Even the Mahjong set would be something. I mean, come on. Cut me some slack here.
If it has Fate on it, you'd sell your left nut for it.
I don't know. I'm quite attached to those.
Oh, dear.
Like, my level of Fate fanaticism doesn't even make it onto the diagram compared to actual Fate fans.
Yeah.
I don't even have any figures.
I have more Fate figures than you do, but it was on sale.
Yeah, I don't.
Both of them were.
I feel like if I bought figures, I would be crossing some kind of Rubicon that I don't want to cross. So
I have managed to contain it at 2. One for work and one for home.
Yeah, I don't want to end up like Abo.
We love you, Abo.
We do. Honest. We're not just using you for cheap laughs.
But we just don't want to be like you.
Yeah,
we're scared of what those figures do to you.
Sometimes I go outside.
You're making it harder for me to actually get him out of the house one of these days. Don't tell him that.
But yeah.
We do love you, Abo, for realsies.
Yeah, so I just wish we had stuff that cool. I really do. I'm not interested in Dante's jacket in particular, but I mean, there are tons of characters that have cool jackets. Like, Adam Jensen has a cool jacket.
If it had been DMC4 Dante's cowboy jacket, I'd I might be trying to sell something. I might need some. I might need to take out a loan.
Well, I think that there's really like the West is famous for ridiculous, ostentatious stuff. Like, why is nobody taking the cue here? You don't need to do very many. It's just a promotional thing. Like, as far as limited editions goes, they're as much for the people that don't buy them as they are for the people that do, in the sense that they create a sort of a mythos around the having of the game, and that they're the class of weird people who raid Naxxramas and wear full tier 3 and org, like those people. But man, maybe nobody knows about that anymore. But yeah, it's I think that it should exist, because like these are the sorts of things that people actually want in their special editions. Like I said, Adam Jensen has a cool trench coat. Lots of people who are nerds think trench coats are awesome, and having one from a game character they like is just that much more awesome. So why not? Why not?
I have a duster. I wear it all the time.
Yeah, why not? Like, this is just money that you're leaving on the table. These people, they buy this thing, they become a walking advertisement for your product. Like, why are you passing up this opportunity? Seriously.
All of these thoughts should be running through your head.
Here we go.
Blind in your sight in a curtain of red Dante jackets.
I don't like how it's gotten less red over the years.
Yeah, I don't either. I like the older reds. I like DMC4s the best. I think that they hit the perfect Dante look there.
Yeah, I'm quite fond of that particular vector myself, as far as the whole look of the franchise goes. But yeah.
At the end of the day, our frustration is getting bigger. So Japan, bang bang bang, pull our devil triggers.
But yeah, I think that there's a lot of grounds to be made up in marketing here. Like, yeah, you can't sell anything really cool for franchises that have no identity, like Call of Duty and Battlefield. But, you know, at least the people at Bethesda, for their many other failings, are starting to cotton on to the fact that if you actually put legit cool stuff in those collector's editions, people want them. But,
people buy it.
They're still...
We'll still make fun of them personally if we think it's stupid, but there will be people that will buy it if you make it cool enough.
Well, I think that they're pleb tier, and I think that Fallout 4 was garbage, and that Fallout 76 is going to be even more garbage. Like, I have zero faith in them at all. I think everything is going to be terrible from here on out.
Bethesda died after Morrowind.
You know, like that. I was like, it's very, very hard for me to give credence to a company that made a trailer with a game that isn't in the concepting stage yet.
The only reason I have any hope that the game may turn out to be okay is their self-aware Alexa trailer.
Yeah, I thought that was cute, but it could also just be a smokescreen for the fact that they were advertising a game that doesn't exist and is not slated to exist for another couple years. So, yeah, I don't know. That seems like real, you know, full frontal dishonesty right there, to present a trailer for a product you don't actually intend to make. In a very real sense, that trailer shown has nothing to do with the actual products that will emerge later down the line. So, yeah.
We shall see. The future holds many mysteries.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, is there anything else I think is worth talking about?
I'll wrap the other ones up and save them for next week in case it's a slow news week, I think, because we've been prattling on forever.
Alright.
Yep. So, we had some fun topics. It wasn't all about boobies. It was a little about boobies. But boobies, there's always two of them, and they're naturally uneven in boobies.
Well, Soul Calibur has boobies in it, and Disgaea has boobies in it. So...
We'll save it. Be that weird chick in Total Recon with 3 boobies.
No, let's not. That's gross. I didn't like that. That made me cringe.
I didn't like it either, but it was the best booby joke I had.
It's called Total Recall as well, not Total Recon.
Did I call it Total Recon? I meant to call it Total Recall.
Man, most people weren't even born when that movie came out, dude.
When did it come out?
Ages ago.
Like, it might be older than me. There's a 2018 remake, 1990. It actually came out 1 year before I was born.
I was born. Man.
You were what, 2, 3?
4?
Yeah, something like that.
3 or 4.
So yeah. Yeah, it came out like 9 months before I was born. Anyway, let's not think about how old we are. That always goes south. Let's end on a happy. Don't want them thoughts going through your head. So yeah, the takeaway from this is buy Dante's jacket, and I will say hey to you on the street. Just good luck paying the import fee. Because that's probably going to cost as much as the jacket.
Import fees are usually only like, you know, the levy is usually only like 10% of the total value at most.
Yeah, we'll see. I never trust anything to do with post mail, especially international mail. It exists to make your life difficult.
That's true. And the customs people are even worse.
Yep. So everything after the booby topics we'll save for next week. I think that seems like a good plan in case it's a slow news week, and we'll have Fern back, and he can actually talk about some of these. So, I think we am done for the week.
Right.
So, all right. Email topic of the week, boobies.
If they actually write us about that topic when they don't write us about other ones, I'll be very upset.
I'll be happy just to have mail in the box. Just don't make me read it, please.
It'll make me question my life choices. It's like we shouldn't have talked about video games. We should have done a podcast about boobies, because that way people will actually write us.
As we found out last week, we can go on for quite a while. Yes. We swear we're not boob dudes, normally. This is not a topic that comes up outside of the show.
Well, it's sort of like how Gabe and Tycho talk about returning to the penis well when they run out of jokes.
So when we run out of Fern, we go to the booby well?
Yeah, pretty much.
Make sure. That makes sense. Fern, come back. Alright, folks. I think we're done for this week. We'll see you next week. Write us emails. Closing comments, go.
I
almost forgot.
am unable to decide whether or not it is worse to have bang, 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 pull my devil trigger stuck in my head, or who put the glad in gladiator stuck in my head.
At least it's not, oh my goodness, oh my gosh, I think we gone full Macintosh. Okay. We'll see y'all next week. Sayonara, bye-bye.
Where's the mute button? I can't find it. We're still live, and I can't mute it because I lost my window.
I can't hold my breath.